Okay. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining. I think we can start, and if there are others willing to join, they can always just join. So in the first place, I would like to introduce ourselves and Danarti scene and talk about a little bit about Danarti as a project. Danarti is a magazine that has been founded in 2011 by myself and a friend of mine, Anna Georgolashvili, Irina Georgiadze, who has just joined us. Danarti has been working as the small collective of 3 curators, and recently we have launched our first blog, which is unfortunately only for Georgian readers, but hopefully it will continue and become bilingual as the whole Danarti project was initially intended. Our invited editor for the blog is Alexandra Aroshvili, who is also here among us. So yeah, this is very briefly. So Danarti is an irregular magazine, bilingual in Georgian and English, and mostly about critical theory, critical thought, poetry, art, architecture, literature, and other. We describe our practice as irregular, and we take the inspiration from early Soviet or pre-Soviet traditions of self-published newspapers. This is how Danarti has a form of a newspaper, as you might have noticed. Our main sponsor is Kunsala Zurich since 2016, and Danarti has been distributed internationally at the bookstores and book fairs such as Printed Matter. We're participating already for the second time, which is a great honor for us. So Ani is here. Unfortunately, Iru and Alexandra couldn't join us because of the strict regulations in Georgia. It's difficult to work and move in the city on the weekends, but hopefully more can join us via Zoom. I would like to say thank you, Boah, for your time and joining us, and I can't wait to start the conversation with you. So briefly about Boah. Boah is a graphic designer based in Paris, who closely works with artists and also fashion designers, something that we will talk about later on. I would like to say that this is the very first time that we have invited a graphic designer, since we always use the same template for Danarti, which Annie will show us now, for all of these years, and we're very excited to have this new identity here. These are some of our older versions that you can see online or on our Printed Matter page. Even though we gave Boah maximum freedom possible to work on the design and art direction of this scene, Boah was very sensitive towards Danarti design as it has been before, and worked closely with the original design. But of course, she contributed on editing some new features, and it's very exciting, and we'll talk about it later. So Boah, can you please, firstly, thank you for your wonderful work. And yeah, can you please let us know what were the ideas behind the decision, some of your graphic design decisions overall, before we go closer and deeper to the actual selection of the works?
Sure. Can you maybe show around?
I can't hear you though. Okay.
It's on mute.
Yeah.
Do you hear me well? Yeah. So can you show around a little bit of magazine first? Maybe it's good to show a little bit of inside before I start to talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
So basically this is the cover, and yes, it's quite big now. How big? It's A3 in one page. Yeah. So it's, when you open, it's A2 size.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically you see here, right.
What I love about the design is that you only see the half of the work, and only after you're through the middle of it, which is this David Horvitz's wonderful work,
Exactly.
you can see the other half of the works.
Sure. Yeah, so actually great. Yeah, so actually when you asked me to work on this issue, I was really into this topic anyway. You know, the title is actually like parent and like child.
Yeah.
So I was deeply into this topic already. I'm not a parent by myself yet, but yeah, like because of my age, possibly, you know, I'm thinking about becoming a parent, and I see a lot of friends who's already a parent. And then I also thought about my role as a child a lot by the time goes, because, you know, the process of detachment with our parents, actually, you know, by the time goes, eventually, you know, we have to think about them, like not only as a parent, but also they're also just human being. So this kind of detachment process was in there. And then you suddenly show this amazing idea, let's make this Danarti issue about parenthood. And then I saw the artist's works. They inspired me a lot, like directly on the format and the layout of the magazine, because their works shows like individually very different way of interpretation of like the role of parents. Mm-hmm. I think most of the artists are parents by themselves, right? And then they see the parenthood in very different ways. And then I just wanted to show this different artists' work individually, but at the same time together, because in the end they're all parents, even though they interpret very different ways. Just wanted their parents, and they're responsible for somebody eventually. So I wanted to mix them together in a very poetic way, somehow. So yes, you gave me a lot of freedom of creation when you asked me, hey, this is a special issue, you can do whatever you want. But then I saw this newspaper format, and the type of the paper that you use historically. And I thought, no, actually, I want to keep it, because this idea that I had at the back of my head, the thematical idea, I want was this loose binding was actually a good way to show it, because I wanted to show each artist's work individually on one page. So you print one artist's work recto and verso, so that when you put out one single page, then you can use it as a poster. Yeah, so that's like Ketuta's work. Yeah.
Which is
it works individually as a poster, but then when it's binded in the form of a book, then you see, like, you eventually see two artists' work mixed together. So I kind of want to keep this concept. So basically the material of artists' works were like directly giving me inspiration of how to make this magazine. Yeah, so basically this is Laila's work and Maya's work together, right? Yeah, so that was the main source of thinking about the format and the layout of the issue.
Yeah, beautiful. I love the way the design also worked as a, sorry, I have to admit somebody, your ideas of the design is also your work in a way, because you're somehow putting these works together as if they create one whole work, which is also true, because these are all very individual experiences of parenthood, but then in the end, these are all experiences of parenthood, which is the shared experience, and it can be so many different things. This was the main idea of, from my side as well, when I started to work and I started to think about the issue, stemming from my own personal experience of becoming a parent, of course. But I also see parenthood as this one big whole, and there's so much to share between the parents, but then it's never the same experience somehow. Not to talk about the traditional understanding of parenthood or the way we thought it would have been before actually becoming ones. So thank you. I think the design reflects the whole idea behind it. And I wanted to say that the design, you created the design before actually having read the main text written by me, which I only wrote just before releasing. This is also the way I usually work, which is reflecting on the works. So I try never to have some kind of a concept or an idea before and then illustrate it by the works of the artist, but quite the opposite. So I think it was a really interesting way to work with you because somehow we had the same kind of ideas behind it. This is my impression. Hello, can you hear us? No? Oops, something has happened with.
Eileen, your microphone doesn't work.
Here, yeah, I think, and also it was with the connection. I lost you also at some point.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't hear the answer, but I'm not sure if you even started to talk because something happened with the connection.
It's all fine now?
It is fine now, yeah.
Oh, good, okay. No, I actually was talking like I could have asked you more information about each artist, and I could have asked you like what kind of work it is and in detail in order to make the layout, but I somehow didn't want to do it, and I kind of want to intuitively interpret by myself the works as I see, and that's why I think it was like mainly conversation between you and me how to build up together. And that was an interesting process for me.
Yeah, this is great to hear. It was mutual. I would, well, the selection process was also very interesting to me because, of course, I had already pre-selected the participating artists, and in most of the cases, I also had selected the works. In two such cases, in case of David Horwitz and artistic couple of Christine Sum Kim and Thomas Mather, the works have been commissioned, which means they created the works especially for this occasion. But in all the other works cases, the works have been pre-existing.
Should we have a look?
Yeah, of course. So illustrate. For instance, I have lost my myself now. Here. So this one by Katuka Aleximashvili, of course, something that you have already seen. 3 images from her series she worked on in 2020. Yeah, if you can see. Jessie Darling, 2018, Little One. Courtesy of the artist in Gallery Sultana in Paris. Wonderful work by Leila Hekmat, which is the research material and an excerpt from her script about Mother for her work So, if I'm saying it correctly, that she staged last year at Gallery Isabella Bortolozzi in Berlin. This was this antique Greek style play theater, but staged in a gallery, which was very interesting. I will talk about it later a little bit more. Here we have Thomas Mather and Chris and Boah Kim's collaboration. They worked on together and with their daughter Wu. Artist Maya Navariani, and who works on paper, also pre-existing from earlier on. One is from early 2000, year 2000 even, and another is from 2019. An artist, Esma Oniani, Georgian artist who has passed away in the 1990s, artist who worked mostly in the 60s and 70s in Georgia. Not sure if you can see it well. And lastly, David Horvitz, who created this work in collaboration with his daughter. This is something that his daughter said herself during the pandemic, and then David turned into his work. The interesting part about this work is that David only sent me an email, so he didn't have any layout or any design ideas about how these sentences should have been written. So this is also your creation. So
did he like it?
I think so, yeah, he really loved it. Because of these regulations in Georgia, it's really difficult to send the post. So I'm waiting for some news. So he will have it printed in his hands. But he has seen the PDF, of course, and the video that I sent, and he's really happy about it. All of the artists are very happy about it. So as you can see, you not only worked on the layout, but you also worked on the layout with David Horvitz. Also, I know that Leila Hekmat and you have been also in conversation regarding the text she used. So wherever you have text, you also contributed on the layout of the text. And this is really interesting to me. And I really love the way artists themselves also gave you the freedom to do whatever you wanted to do with their work.
Yeah, I was very lucky. I was very lucky, but usually I don't touch images because it's their work.
Yeah.
But when they give me the bit of room to work on the text, I'm very happy to do it, because I myself started graphic design with a big interest in typography and concrete poetry. So that's the behind, like, my starting point of a graphic designer, being a graphic designer. So I was very lucky, to be honest. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. The Horvitz work that you worked on does have the influence of the concrete poetry, you can tell, because
exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
There's so much happening in it. And it was text. It wasn't even written in the Word document or something. I'm sure David will be okay to hear this. Yeah, it was like a text message or something. And then he also used this work in his current work that he's doing. This is this Fluxus that he's working on at the moment, and it hasn't been finished, but he's using the same thematic of the experiences of his and relationship of him and his daughter during the pandemic, when the schools and preschools close and they're having their own classes at home, etc. So the way their relationship changed, and it's very interesting. So yeah, I would like to add that the way I selected the participating artists was, to me, because it was a very personal choice to me to work on this issue. I also started to think about the artists not only through their work, but through their personal immediate experience and environment of a family structure. So the way I chose these artists were regarding to the differences in their family structures and their gender, which is one of the most important aspects of the issue. As you can see, I have changed like father, like son, or like mother, like daughter, which is usually the way it is used, to like parent, like child, in order to have a broad invitation of all parents. But as I said, some of the works that I sent you were more than we in the end published. So what were the ideas of choosing and making these selections out of this big folder of works?
So after I set up this format of the book, like this binding system, play with this binding methods, then eventually after that it was more like an aesthetical selection. So I put each artist's work on one single pages, and I start to think about how it would look when it's binded together, which means like when it's juxtaposed together, it would look like good in terms of color, in terms of shape, in terms of theme. So after that, that was it actually, aesthetic, more or less. Yeah.
And it worked perfectly well. Thank you. I think we're running a little bit out of time. So I would like to ask you about your practice in general. I know that you have been working both in art and in fashion. And can you tell us a little bit about your experience and how different are these two spheres?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm working in art and fashion industry both. But for me, it doesn't matter that much. Like the domain itself doesn't really matter for me. But what matters to me is the type of work I'm doing. So, like, it matters like if it's branding project or if it's editorial project. That's the difference. It doesn't matter if it's art or fashion, but if the type of work I'm doing is branding or if it's editorial or publication design, then I think I have a different part of my brain's working, basically. Yeah. So I think when I'm working for branding, which mostly for fashion brands, because I started to work in fashion when I was working for Balenciaga, the fashion house Balenciaga, in 2017. Then like after that, a lot of small or big brands, fashion brands, started to ask me to do branding. And when I'm doing branding projects, like the conversation between my clients and me are very, very, very important. Like what their need is and what their reference is and what kind of brand image they want to have. That gives me like direct inspiration. And that gives me the direction where I can go and what kind of research I have to do. So it's kind of like very much conversation and ping-ponging process. And then when I work in a publication, mostly the clients for publication projects they are friends, they already know me and they already trust in my artistry and the way of creation. And because for me, I see a book as a time-based media, and I'm making story very organically. I try to make story very organically with the text and image that I have. So there, like, which makes me so inspired is like basically the material itself. Like in this case, artist work and the text. Yeah. So I see like a little bit of analysis happens first at the beginning, like what kind of text it is, what kind of image it is, and how can I mix together. And those ways, this is like starting point of making publication for me. So it's not really matters. It's not like a matter of like either fashion or art, but it's like matter of if it's branding project or editorial projects for me. So yeah.
Is there anything exciting project that you're working on at the moment?
A lot. I'm always excited.
Shut up, bitch!
Oops.
Oops.
What was that?